Hello again, everybody. Marcus here. I review stuff. Today, I'm reviewing myself because I'm going to be talking about, a few things. First and foremost, a few weeks ago I had released a video just thanking my subscribers and looking for input on how to approach song requests because I get so many and I really want to try to get to as many as I can. And then I also asked, for some questions so I could keep doing these sort of video series where I sit down and just talk with my community and maybe answer questions and stuff like that. So we're going to do a few things here. First and foremost, I'll tell you what I decided basically from those few weeks ago. I essentially reached out and said, hey, I get so many requests that it's going to be months until you see your request if you make one today. How should I go about handling that? The overwhelming response was just, don't worry about it, dude. Relax. I mean, who cares? It's it's music. You're meant to have a good time doing this. Don't stress out about picking songs, and that's basically what I decided to go with. I don't want to stress about picking songs, but I do have a system. So my system from here on out, I record 4 videos a day. And so 2 of those videos, I'm just going to take from my oldest requests, go in order. But then the other 2 videos, I'm really going to try to look at my more popular, more frequent requests and really try to do those. So you've probably started seeing that a little bit by now, where, one song may be maybe a band that no one really listens to as much, maybe gets 20 views. The next song after that is a Tool song that gets 1,000 views or something like that, right? So that's kind of what I'm trying to do, keep the popular requests intermixed with maybe some of the older or maybe less popular requests. So that system seems to be working. So thank you for everybody who suggested things that I could do to kind of alleviate the stress from myself. So that's the first part. Again, thank you for that. The second part was I had asked again for questions because I just love sitting in front of my camera and talking basically, and so I love doing reviews, reactions, whatever you want to call them, but also just love getting to sort of be myself and showcase myself as a person, not just as like a music reviewer or a music reaction guy or whatever, but just put myself out there as a person and really talk about things that I think of or that I've experienced or what have you, and so I asked for questions, and many of you were happy to hit me up with some questions. So today in this video, I'm going to be answering a question that came to me from one of you, from Jake Gonzalez. He asks, what bands/albums got you interested in listening to music? What type of stuff did you listen to during your childhood/teenage years? And so this is the part where I review myself. I've been wanting to do this for a while because one, I feel like it gives you guys kind of a good idea of what to recommend for me. I mean, if you can't already tell by the music that I already react to, this I think would be a good way to see, what I'm familiar with, what I grew up with, and hopefully help you tailor some requests to some of those tastes. But also, I think it's just kind of interesting to know a person's musical history. Music is such an important part of my life, and I'm sure many of your lives as well. So, I want to know people's music history. What was important to them when they were younger? What's still important to them? What are those songs that hold their heart and just are really stick with them? So I'm a big proponent that you have to listen to music that has meaning to you, as well as listening to music that's just fun and catchy and what have you. So you got to have a good mixture of both. So anyway, I'm gonna go over. Let's see, I have like 11 plus, maybe 15 total bands and artists here that have really like influenced me throughout my life. Bands that I've considered my favorites at one point or another, and I'm sort of gonna give you like a walkthrough of my musical history at this point. And of course, there are hundreds and hundreds of bands out there. There's no way that I've included them all here. I tried to grab the biggest hits here. Without further ado, here is my music history. So I got to start, of course, with the family history, because when you're young, you basically have to listen to whatever your family wants you to listen to. So for me, my dad listened to mostly classic rock. My mom listened to like classic, I don't even know, like pop. She likes people like Lionel Richie. I don't know how to categorize that. I'm not too familiar with his music. She liked Neil Diamond, stuff like that, like the really old school stuff, right? She liked that kind of stuff. And both of my parents love Tejano music, some Spanish influence, Selena here and there. But my mom loved Ricky Martin, Ramon Ayala, people like that, So we grew up listening to a lot of that. That's never been my cup of tea, and I think a big part of that is I don't speak Spanish, and I am such a lyrical person that for me, like that's a big thing, is being able to understand what's being said in the song. So I gravitated more towards what my dad listened to a lot, which was classic rock. So a bunch of bands that I kind of grew up listening to, Van Halen, AC/DC, Creedence Clearwater Revival. Oh man, I still love me some Creedence Clearwater Revival. Bob Seger, still love me some Bob Seger too. My dad tells stories about how he started listening to Bob Seger. He used to be like a bouncer back in his hometown. He was kind of one of those street toughs for a while, if you will. But he tells me like he really fell in love listening to Bob Seger when he would go to like pool halls and they'd be playing Bob Seger while he's shooting pool and having a beer. So that was to him like something that got him into it. And for me, I love Bob Seger, Creedence Clearwater Revival. Those are the two big ones that have really stuck with me since I was a kid. I still listen to a little bit of Van Halen, a little AC/DC, and then he listened to a lot of music in that vein. So, still listen to a lot of that stuff. It's classic rock, of course. Eagles. You could go on and on, right? So, Queen, just all kinds of stuff. I still listen to a lot of that today. But that's definitely my dad's influence there. I would say the first artist that I really liked on my own, where I would say like, this is my favorite artist. This is not influenced necessarily by my dad. This is like who I like, was Ozzy. I loved Ozzy when I was like in elementary school. I have this very distinct memory of walking into my elementary school bathroom just to use the restroom or whatever, and just as I'm walking in there, I'm singing. I think it was either Shot in the Dark or it was Bark at the Moon. I was singing one of those, just kind of like humming along, singing it as I walk into the bathroom. I did my business, and I'm just singing it on the way out, too. Like, I loved Ozzy when I was a kid, which is surprising that my parents, like, allowed that necessarily, just because, I was raised Catholic, and, my mom doesn't take kindly to some, many objectionable lyrics, although, my dad listens to classic rock, so he's used to that kind of stuff. So that's probably why I was allowed to get away with just loving Ozzy. To the point where my parents bought me like an Ozzy album. That was like one of the first albums I ever owned was that I could call my own, was this Ozzy Osbourne tribute CD. It was a Randy Rhoads tribute. I think not too long after Randy Rhoads had passed, they had made like a tribute album, and I actually still have it. It's right here. It's a live album. It has like a bunch of their hits on it, Ozzy and Randy Rhoads, keeping this like purple container. This thing is probably older than a lot of the people who come to my channel, I'll tell you that much. But that was like one of my first albums. I still have it. I don't own too much physical media nowadays, but that's one of the ones I've definitely kept because it is very special to me. It is one of those where it's like it's the first album that I really owned, that I can really remember. I think the other thing that I originally owned was this Van Halen cassette that my dad had gave me, so I remember that one too. But I don't have that one anymore because cassette fell out of style way before CD did. But that's a pretty cool thing for me, I think. So Ozzy was huge for me. I loved Ozzy. And then after Ozzy, I think my next favorite band that I can really remember was Red Hot Chili Peppers. I listened to Red Hot Chili Peppers all the time. Again, I have one of those very weird, distinct memories of just like sitting in my mom's car, listening to Scar Tissue as we drove through the town or whatever, as we were heading to wherever we were going. And I just remember like looking out the window and just like listening to Scar Tissue and just thinking about what he was saying as like a 10-year-old or something, what kind of meaning does this have to me? But I love me some Red Hot Chili Peppers. I continued, I listened to them all throughout like middle school, high school. I remember getting Stadium Arcadium when it first came out. I remember my mom driving me to like our church youth practices or whatever, and I was jamming some Stadium Arcadium, because that's the thing. Like my mom was nice enough where I usually got to pick the music when we were in the car. When my dad was driving, not so much, but my mom usually let me get away with it. So listening to some Red Hot Chili Peppers, a huge band for me. After that, I think my next favorite band, y'all going to hate me for this. Y'all going to hate me a lot for this. But I stand by this. I will make an entire video defending this if I have to. But the next biggest band for me was Creed. I know some people are going to get mad at that, but I love Creed. I still listen to Creed. I was listening to Creed earlier today on my morning walk. I love me some Creed, man. And to me, there's no shame in that. I think the internet hate machine has a great way of sort of glomming onto this thing and saying that it's worse than it really is. It happens all the time. The most recent example I can even think of is The Last of Us 2. So many people on the internet came out and just said this game is garbage. I'm never going to play it, blah, blah, blah. But the people who actually experienced it and enjoyed it have said, hey, it was an enjoyable game. It was Was it perfect? No, but it was an enjoyable game. I feel the same way about that with Creed, is that like a lot of people who don't listen to rock a whole lot write Creed off. They jump on the internet hate bandwagon. They say, they're garbage, whatever. But they have, to me, still some of the best musicians at the time, and certainly even today. I mean, Mark Tremonti is as great today as he ever was. You can never discount a band that has Mark Tremonti in it. So I can make a whole video about Creed and why I still appreciate them. But we used to listen to a lot of Creed in my house. So to me, there's no shame in that. I also look at it sort of like the Star Wars prequels. It's like, I was young when Creed, obviously I was young when Creed was doing their thing. I was young when the Star Wars prequels came out. So to me, both of them have a sort of nostalgic feel to them. And where I'm able to point out the flaws in the prequels, I'm able to point out the flaws in Creed, I still enjoy them. That's the thing. I don't care how bad they are. I enjoy them. So I'll stand by that forever. But it's funny because I have one more story regarding Creed, is that my dad took my older brother to a Creed concert, when they were obviously still touring back in the day. And because of that Creed concert, my dad would never take me to concerts, because he would always complain, like, oh man, even at the Creed concert, they're out here smoking weed and stuff. So apparently, like, the whole stadium or whatever smelled like weed. My dad didn't like that. So he was like, I'm never taking you. So I would ask him, like, constantly, Dad, I like, Metallica's going to be in town, next week. Let's go see Metallica. Can you take me, Dad? Blah, blah, blah. He was like, no, because when I took your brother to go see Creed, they were smoking weed in the crowd and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh, come on, Dad. And it was always his excuse. But so yeah. Anyway, I eventually got to see Metallica. We'll get to that a little bit later in the list. But so after Creed, I think that transitioned me very easily into the next band, which was Alter Bridge. As I said, I love Mark Tremonti. Dude makes amazing music. Scott Phillips on the drums, Brian Marshall on the bass, and then you take away Scott Stapp, which to me is the objectively worst part of Creed, and you throw in someone like Miles Kennedy, which to me is one of the best parts of Alter Bridge, and it's like, man, Alter Bridge captured my imagination like from the moment I heard them. I was listening to my radio at home, and it was like this blue, I remember it was this blue MTV radio, and I turned it to 99.5, which is like the rock station around here, right? And I caught I only caught the guitar solo of Open Your Eyes, and I was just like, whoa, what is this? Like, this guitar solo was amazing. I love it. And then I heard Miles come in and sing the rest of the song, and I was like, yo, this song is amazing. I got to figure out what the hell this song is. So I waited till the end of the song, and, sometimes they'll say, oh, that was Alter Bridge with Open Your Eyes. They didn't do that, and I was like, oh, shit. So I had to, run to my mom's computer and go to, 995kiss.com or whatever, and I was like, okay, what song was just played? And I found out, and from that moment on, Alter Bridge has been one of my favorite bands. I own every single album from them. And when I say own, I own the physical copies. I'm looking at my vinyl copy of Walk the Sky right now. I can see it from where I'm sitting. So, to me, they're still one of my favorite bands. I love every single one of their albums. To me, Fortress is their strongest one still. I made a whole video about that a while back too. But yeah, I love this band. They're still one of my favorites. So then after Alter Bridge, and this is still in middle school, by the way. This is I took you Ozzy, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Van Halen, stuff like that. That was elementary school. Middle school was more for a little bit of Creed, Alter Bridge, and then Metallica. I mean, I as someone who had listened to radio as much as I did, we listened to a lot of radio back in my time. I had heard Metallica a lot, but it wasn't until my friend Steven let me borrow his Black album that I was like, whoa, I really got to listen to just more than the singles. All I had heard at that point were the singles, because all I had ever really heard was from the radio. So to actually get the Black album and be able to listen to it front to back. And I know people hate on the Black album. Come on. It's a solid album. That album alone has sold 15 million copies. There are artists out there who haven't even sold 15 million copies in their entire discography. I don't care what people say about the Black album. I still love it. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not my favorite, and no song off the Black album is my favorite of theirs. But to me, it's still a solid album. I'm just going to throw it out there. I like Metallica. So I finally got to see Metallica back in, I want to say 2018. They came to ACL. In Austin, of course. I finally got to see him. My wife, girlfriend at the time, bought me tickets to go see that, and she doesn't listen to heavy metal at all. So for her, for her to buy us Metallica tickets blew me away. And sure enough, first song comes on, she was feeling it. Like, she doesn't listen to metal, but she was feeling it because they just brought the energy. And here's where it all comes full circle, though. At the Metallica concert, as we were sitting there enjoying it, or standing there and enjoying it, some dude who looked just like Doc from Back to the Future, but younger, tried to pass me a joint, and I was like, "Nah, man, I'm good." And as I like waved him off, I like looked at the crowd, and I was just like, "Damn, my dad was right." I was like, "Well played, Dad. Well played. Touche. You got me there." My dad's excuse was always, "Someone's gonna offer you weed at the concert. I can't take you to concerts. You're a kid or whatever." And I was like, "Oh, come on, Dad. You're being paranoid." And sure enough, finally got to see Metallica. And what happens? Someone tries to pass me a joint, and I'm just like, "Damn it, Dad! You got a point there, man. You got a point." Anyway, from middle school and then into high school, really started feeling things like System of a Down, Rage Against the Machine, and I loved that. And then also during high school, I went through a huge Allison Chains phase. I listen to Allison Chains all the time. I love Allison Chains. They're, to me, one of the best bands I've ever heard. They're my favorite of the grunge bands, oddly enough. I almost don't even consider them grunge sometimes because I feel like they lean heavier towards just hard rock or even metal. But I love Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell harmonizing. They're one of the bands that I had a greatest hits album for, and I love that. I wore that thing out, and some of my favorites from them are some of the more unconventional songs that you don't hear as much. Like, I love Rooster, I love Wood, songs like that. But what was it? Again is one of my favorites. Rain When I Die is one of my favorites. Like, songs like that really captured my imagination. I love Alice in Chains. I actually forgot to write them down, but as I was thinking about it, I was like, oh shit, how did I forget to write down Alice in Chains? I love Alice in Chains. And then, like, towards the end of my high school career, junior, senior year, really got into Slipknot and Trivium. I remember going and buying, in the same year I think they came out, I went and bought All Hope Is Gone from Slipknot, and I bought Shogun from Trivium. Shogun is still one of my favorite albums, period, but not even to mention my favorite Trivium album. I love that album. Bought them from Hastings, oddly enough. Hastings doesn't exist anymore, but I remember driving before school, actually. It was before school. I had senior release, right? So I didn't have to show up to school till like a little bit later. So I go to Hastings and I bought All Hope Is Gone, immediately popped it into my car's CD player and jammed it all the way to school. I had a great time with it. So love that album. Love both of those bands, Slipknot and Trivium. When I got into college, I don't even know what the hell I listened to. My tastes were so weird. Like, first of all, I barely remember college in a lot of ways. But it's like I do remember going through a big ska phase where I listened to like a lot of Streetlight Manifesto, Mighty Mighty Ballstones. It was a weird time in my life. I think college is kind of a weird time for most people, but it was definitely weird for me as far as my musical journey goes. I don't know what the hell I was doing. But towards the end of my college career, and then especially into grad school, I listened to a lot of Neil Young. My friend Chris showed me Neil Young, and he like, Neil Young was his favorite artist. So he's like, "Hey, you gotta listen to Neil Young," and I immediately I fell in love with his music. I love Neil Young. He is like my depression stylist. He has some beautiful, great songs, but he definitely has those songs that really capture that feeling of like 20-something-year-old angst, so he's on my stay list. Neil Young to me is one of my favorites, one of the biggest artists for me. Huge props to Neil Young. Got me through a lot of hard times, especially in grad school there. Let's see, in grad school, now that we're moving on, when I was in grad school, I listened to a lot of Tame Impala also. My friends showed me them. It's kind of hard for me nowadays to actually listen to Lonerism because grad school for me was a very hard time in my life. Again, why I listened to a lot of Neil Young. But Lonerism was an album I basically had on repeat when I was in grad school. And so now, because it was a hard time in my life, it's actually really hard for me to sit down and listen to Lonerism sometimes. But it's a hell of an album. I actually went and listened to it all the way through the other day because I was like, you know what? I think I can get through this. I'll be all right. And then, after grad school, I still listen to all the same stuff you've heard on this list, but I think one band that I really got into once I kind of started my professional life and started teaching and stuff like that was actually Avenged Sevenfold. I've liked Avenged Sevenfold for many years now. The first time I heard Backcountry when I was like in, middle school, early high school, I loved it. Like, the guitar solos blew me away. But I really love, like, Hail to the King. I know that's controversial, too. Some of you are probably like, man, I listen to this guy? What the hell does he know? I love Hail to the King. Just great hard rock, heavy metal stuff there. I don't care if it's a little too close to, the bands that came before them. I love it. I think it's a fantastic album. But to me, the The jewel in their discography is, well, two parts. Nightmare, which I actually didn't like when it first came out. For some reason, I just couldn't get into it, but I love Nightmare nowadays. That album is fantastic. And two, The Stage. As someone who just loves like science and sci-fi as much as I do, to me, The Stage was a breath of fresh air. Just a lot of really cool things that they did in that album. So Avenged Sevenfold is definitely one of my recent favorites. And then I'm leaving a ton of songs off, a ton of artists off here, obviously. A lot of my favorites currently, because I've started doing this channel, and that's introduced me to a lot of new favorites: Arctic Monkeys, Queens of the Stone Age, King Gizzard. Those bands like that have really like become staples in my playlist. So thank you to you guys. So that's my music history. I basically took you from the time I was a kid to the time, well, almost now, and so hopefully what I'm really hoping is that you can kind of take this information and sort of say, okay, now I have a little bit of a better idea on what to recommend to this guy, what's going to really get him going, what's going to really play well to his ears. And I'll be honest, as much as I like all of these bands on here, there's a lot of them that I've still only ever heard the singles to. Like, I'll be real, I've really, as far as Red Hot Chili Peppers go, I've listened to really just their singles, and then all of Stadium Arcadium, just because I owned that album when I was younger. That's the thing. If I didn't own the album, I most likely didn't hear all the songs off of it, and mostly relied on radio to give me the singles, so there's a lot of bands. What I don't want you guys to think is like, oh, he already knows Neil Young, so let's not recommend any Neil Young to him. Neil Young has a discography that spans decades. I mean, he's released an album almost every year for the last like 30, 40 years, something like that, right? So it's like, yeah, there's so much more Neil Young you can recommend. System of a Down. I've listened to a lot of System of a Down. I've listened to basically all Rage Against the Machine, all Alter Bridge. There are some bands where if you recommend it, I've heard it. But for a lot of these, like I said, I've really just heard the singles. So if you have some of those more underground or maybe lesser known songs, definitely keep them coming. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this format. I'm always trying something a little bit different. I want to continue growing and improving the channel, and just trying to. I want to differentiate myself from the crowd. I don't want to be like every single. I don't want to be like every single music reaction channel where all I do is music reactions, and you get the same thing regardless of what reaction channel you watch. So I always trying to do new and fresh things and just provide maybe some different perspectives. I don't know. So let me know if you liked it. Give me some more questions to answer that you'd like me to answer in this format. I'd be happy to try it out. Give it a shot, just tell you my opinion or my experience or what have you. But anyway, that's it for me. Hope you guys are staying safe and healthy. Hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.